Twice every year in the U.S. state of Hawaii, shadows completely disappear. Objects take on a photoshopped look as they sit completely illuminated with no shadows indicating the source of light. This phenomenon is known as Lahaina noon. Hawaii is the only U.S. state where this bizarre event can be observed, but at some place on the Earth, this event is always taking place. This place is correlated to a principle called the subsolar point. The subsolar point is the exact location on any given planet where the sun appears to be directly overhead and thus the sun's rays hit the surface at exactly 90 degrees. This causes the shadows from the emitted light to fall directly below an object. The subsolar point on the Earth moves westward as the Earth rotates, traveling between the Tropic of Cancer at 23.43693 degrees north of the equator and the Tropic of Capricorn at 23.43693 degrees south of the equator, meaning that only locations within these bounds will experience the phenomenon. Both the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn actually get their definition from the location of the subsolar point at the time of the summer and winter solstice. The Tropic of Cancer is marked by the parallel of the subsolar point during the summer solstice, and the Tropic of Capricorn by the subsolar point location during the winter solstice. Because the point stays strictly between these two bounds, Hawaii is the only U.S. state where you can observe this event, and even then, it only happens twice a year. As for when it happens, it's usually sometime around each solstice, more specifically between the times of 12:16 to 12:43 p.m. during the day, sometime in the months of May through July. This variance all has to do with the changing location of the Earth around the Sun and the movement of other celestial bodies. You can actually track the exact location of the subsolar point at any given time using various online tracking tools. If you do happen to live within these boundaries, you can even use some tools to find out exactly when the subsolar point will cross over your exact location. The name of Lahaina noon actually was chosen by the Bishop Museum in Hawaii in the 1990s. The term is quite popular locally, but the rest of the world simply refers to the phenomenon as the time of zenith. Part of what makes this phenomenon so popular and puzzling is the effect it has on shadows. Our brains have developed an understanding of shadows and how to interpret them. When they disappear, our brains start thinking that there is something wrong with our visual input, causing normal objects to look like they're floating or photoshopped in the real world. This confusion in our brain is largely due to the fact that shadows help us understand relative size as well as process depth. When there is no variance in lighting across a plane or landscape, it starts to look fake and more like a bad Photoshop job. So, each day, the subsolar point tracks westward across the Earth, moving north and south between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. And at this subsolar point, shadows disappear completely, resulting in a perplexing phenomenon.
The sun is highest in the sky to you, your noon, when your meridian is pointed right at the sun. A cool thing happens at this moment. All shadows around you point directly towards one of Earth's poles, unless you're on the subsolar point. The subsolar point is the point on Earth's surface directly below the sun. It's always somewhere. You can check its current location online, links as always in the description. On the subsolar point, shadows fall straight down so they can easily disappear. Twice a year, the subsolar point crosses over Hawaii, the only place in the US where it hits land. And when it does, it is called Lahaina noon, meaning cruel sun. Straight vertical objects look unnatural during this brief time, like they don't belong, as if they were photoshopped in without regard for reality. You may not live in a place where the sun ever appears directly overhead, but once every Earth rotation, the subsolar point falls somewhere on your meridian, making it noon for you. The technical name for this noon for you is local apparent solar noon.
The axis of the Earth is an imaginary line on which the Earth rotates. It links up the two poles. Both the axis and the Earth are tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees during a revolution. The tilting of the axis results in direct sunlight falling on different places during different seasons. This causes variations in the duration of days, nights, and seasons. Relationship between the location of the overhead sun and the seasons. Similarly, the revolution of the Earth and the tilting of the axis results in different angle of the sun during different periods. When the sun is directly overhead, we call this the overhead sun. At this time, the Earth's surface and the midday sun forms a 90-degree angle. Different locations of the overhead sun results in variations in the amount of solar radiation received in different areas and at different periods. Spring equinox, on the 21st or 22nd of March. The overhead sun is over the equator. The equator receives the largest amount of solar radiation. At this time, the northern hemisphere is in the spring equinox, while the southern hemisphere is in the autumn equinox. The angle of the sun decreases towards the poles. On this day, the two hemispheres receive a similar amount of solar radiation, and the length of day and night is the same at all places on the Earth. After this day, it is spring in the northern hemisphere, where the day is longer than the night. In the southern hemisphere, it becomes autumn, when the day is shorter than the night. Summer solstice. On the 21st or 22nd of June, the overhead sun is over the Tropic of Cancer. It receives the largest amount of solar radiation. At this time, the northern hemisphere is in the summer solstice, while the southern hemisphere is in the winter solstice. The angle of the sun decreases towards the poles. On this day, the length of daytime of the northern hemisphere is the longest in the year, while that of the southern hemisphere is the shortest in the year. Besides, there are 24 hours of daylight at the Arctic Circle and 24 hours of darkness at the Antarctic Circle. Autumn equinox. On the 22nd or 23rd of September, the overhead sun is over the equator again. The equator receives the largest amount of solar radiation. On this day, the northern hemisphere is in the autumn equinox, while the southern hemisphere is in the spring equinox. The angle of the sun decreases towards the poles. On this day, the two hemispheres receive a similar amount of solar radiation, and the length of day and night is the same at all places on the Earth. After this day, it is autumn in the northern hemisphere, where the day is shorter than the night. In the southern hemisphere, it becomes spring, when the day is longer than the night. Winter solstice. On the 21st and 22nd of December, the overhead sun is over the Tropic of Capricorn. It receives the largest amount of solar radiation. On this day, the northern hemisphere is in the winter solstice, while the southern hemisphere is in the summer solstice. The angle of the sun decreases towards the poles. On this day, the length of daytime in the northern hemisphere is the shortest in the year, while that of the southern hemisphere is the longest in the year. There are 24 hours of darkness at the Arctic Circle and 24 hours of daylight at the Antarctic Circle.
Seasons are affected by solstices and equinoxes. There is the winter solstice, the vernal equinox, the summer solstice, and the autumnal equinox. A solstice is when the sun in the sky reaches its northernmost or southernmost extremes. This happens because of the Earth's tilt. The summer solstice marks the first day of summer around the 21st of June. On that day in the northern hemisphere, the sun is the highest it ever gets, which results in the summer solstice being the longest day of the year. The northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, so the sun is located right above the northern continents. But the winter solstice is the opposite. It occurs around the 21st of December, and the sun is very low in the sky. This results in the shortest day of the year because the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. An equinox is different than a solstice. An equinox is when the sun is directly over the equator and the sun is shining on half of the Earth equally. However, most places on Earth aren't seeing exactly 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. Also during an equinox, the Earth's axis isn't tilting towards or away from the sun. There are two equinoxes, the vernal equinox, which occurs at the end of March, and the autumnal equinox, which occurs at the end of September. They work the same way, but the difference is that they occur on different sides of the sun. The vernal equinox is around the start of spring, because after the equinox, the northern hemisphere will be tilting toward the sun, so it'll get warmer. The autumnal equinox is the opposite. The northern hemisphere starts tilting away from the sun around the first day of fall, and it starts to get colder. It was officially fall on September 22nd this year, but the autumnal equinox is on September 23rd because the equinox is actually determined by the placement of the Earth in relation to the sun. So, after the autumnal equinox on the 23rd, we will start seeing more night than day. Back on Earth.
want to understand the galaxies, the stars, how did the stars form, how did the elements come from the interior furnaces to form the planets, to form the elements that make up our own body. It's a continuous pattern of trying to understand the world, and that's what cosmology is.
At sunrise in the ancient city of Tsibilchaltun, the sun shines through the main portal, transforming the building into the shining face of the sun. In our tropical homelands, the sun can be seen directly overhead twice a year, marking an important event that astronomers call the zenith passage. When the sun is at the zenith, the shadows of vertical objects disappear. The zenith passage was tracked by using solar alignments with buildings and other structures in ancient Maya cities. At Uxmal, the zenith passage can be observed by watching the shadows of the vertical monuments disappear at midday. At Chichen Itza, on the day of the zenith passage, the sun sets behind the great ball court in precise alignment with the Chacmol statue. The opposite of the zenith is a nadir passage of the sun, when the sun is directly underneath us at midnight. This astronomical event was also known to our ancestors. In Palenque, the nadir passage is marked by the alignment of architectural features with the sun at sunrise and sunset on that specific day. In the land of the oldest Maya cities, the sun is at the nadir, or directly underneath, in early November. It is no coincidence that Day of the Dead happens then too, because this is when the sun is visiting with our ancestors in the underworld. Maya astronomy.
Then the lower part of this design may have some significance. So I built a flat stone pointed stick in the south end, aligned it to the North Star, so here we have east and west. So we have a true north line to the base of the stick. Well, on the winter solstice, the shadow of the sun makes an arc to the north. On the summer solstice, the shadow of the sun makes an arc to the south. On the equinox, 2 days a year, we get a straight west to east line across the stone. This line is lower, actually less space between the legs and this line on the equinox than the arms in this line. And that's because of our latitude north of the equator. So here is our belly button or navel, and the creation stories talk about the navel. What happens is the design made on the flat stone by a stick makes the design carved on the tree. So on the flat stone, in June, December, March, and September, this design is made. So no sundial will work or tell correct time unless it's aligned to the North Star, Polaris. This happens as the sun rises in the east, goes over our heads, and sets in the west. The entire northern hemisphere, everywhere, this is what happens as the Earth spins on its axis toward the east. For one cyclic year, if you have a flat stone and you're watching the shadow of the sun, it's at light speed, and it's at least 10,000 times more accurate than the day calendar we use today. This design is recorded in the rock art of every nation, of every human nation, anywhere on Earth. No sundial ever made by a European or anybody else, ever, in the northern hemisphere, if it's not aligned to the North Star, it'll be incorrect. It won't tell time.
So we're at the flat stone that you've created, and from what I understand, you're the only one that's making them. Mm-hmm. So maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the flat stones have to do with the shadow of the sun and the daytime. So where we are latitudinally, on the equinoxes, you'll notice that the shadow of the sun begins in the west from the stick and crosses the stone at a perfect 90-degree angle until the sun sets in the west. So the arc on the winter solstice comes over here and it crosses like this. Now here we have a shadow that's shorter. It's not touching the equinox line or the Christmas winter solstice line. It's all the way down here, and then it'll cross here and go across and then cross the 90-degree line from the stick in the opposite angle of the winter solstice. So we have two arcs that are the arcs of time. The arc of the maximum longest night of the year, the arc of the maximum longest day of the year, and then we have the straight line when day and night are equal. It is our knowledge. It is Siwut. It is time, the calendar. This is it. This is the image. So, some folks are saying that I've discovered the foundation of all religion in the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere, because you'll see this design carved and painted in Mongolia, all through the Southern Hemisphere and all through the Northern. This is time itself, and this is really the greatest reality. This isn't a theory, this is a fact. The flat stones were used by the native people, and it's part of their creation story here in Chumash territory and other areas. The first stone I built was tan, and then I found out the stones were supposed to be white. The shadow's cast better on a white stone than it is on a tan stone. Every single living thing that exists today is in sync with the biological sphere that was created here through time, except us. So we need to get back in sync with our fellow brothers and sisters around the world.
landlubbers! This is your old friend Rusty Pete, and I'm here to offer you the opportunity of a lifetime.
All you can drink grog down at Belligerent Jack's?
No,
A lifetime supply of Stay Sharp skewering swords?
no.
A free night in Slumbering Sally's house of questionable moral fibre?
Well, that would be the opportunity of a lifetime. But I'm talking about Rusty Pete's School of Piracy.
Rusty Pete's School of Piracy?
For sure. A place where misguided young gentlemen can learn the fine trade of our great and noble profession.
Industries. Nefarious hired them to locate Zoni technology. They keep a database of every obsidian eye in the universe.
Oh yeah, I felt it.
Just let us waltz into the building. We may have to be a little aggressive.
I'm ready.
Aggressive, huh? Well, we will in time. Last time, we ended up meeting up with General Alistair Azimuth, earning ourselves...
This just in. Chaos and panic are spreading through the galaxy, thanks to strange,
Are temporal rifts.
The result? rioting and lawlessness.
I do love a new story when they pop up. Let us get ourselves some bolts. Now, we're on this world in particular, we need to get ourselves a zone so we can upgrade our ship. And I believe this one will be one that is required in the game, and will help us with more side quests, which is why we are doing this. And I could have gone straight into this. I thought there's not a lot of deals there. So wrong. Jump off. Jump off. Right. It's going to give me copyright. I'm copyright this. Why is my future? Copyright. 2, 3, go. Jump off. Yeah, close. 2. I feel like I mean that again. I'm really game. Oh, I'm really getting chaos on things. For some obvious reason. I don't know why. Like, I think it's like running lower frame rate. I'm playing based off. I gotta really the button. The screen card to counter. Okay, smooth. You. Like, I feel the frame rate really choppy. I think that's smooth. Here's a little bit of technical stuff on my end. I think it's on my end. I don't get any problems with that. I got it themselves. I'm going to be helping much more find a screen card. Okay. Go. This should take us to the zony. Yep, there it is. So, let us get a plot important one. One that is very beneficial. That's weird. I should have gotten a skill point.
That's my jam right there.
Oh well,
This is
let's
your
go to
man on
Vila
the ones and
Sigma.
twos. The one.
But first, let's go to House of Synth. And land on this moon? I have... Oh. Oh, would you... So great! Wait, let's kill all these aliens. This is a gun? Or doesn't fucking not go at it. Okay, don't do it. Well, I got this blue one, so yeah. Right. Right, dead. Right, done. I was really thinking that was, you know, what we needed. Yeah, super fine. Look at because they were supposed to fly on the scale for 15 seconds, and for some reason I tried going for more than 15 seconds, but I guess not. Thanks. Click on 3, 4. I were cycling already. And right, so that is 4 mods out of 21. So let us go. Behind it? That doesn't make sense. Either way, let's go to yet another one, Vila Beta. This one requires the hover boots. Okay. I knew one of these required the hover boots. God, that auto-corrected me. Right. Two, 3. Maybe this one 3. Then one will actually get used. Get one. I got it. Yeah, got it. Goodness. Right, a good fucking right one and moving. There we go. I'm gonna charge us 4 shots for it. How about that? Well, at least the Sonic Eruptor is almost fully upgraded. I'm gonna die. It is so bad. Yep. Nope. Very careless. There you go. 2, 3. Very careless. There's the Zony. Good. So, that takes care of Vila Beta. You know, I have the hover... I was really thrown off because... Let me check my... Let's go to Pirate Radio. There's a gold bolt on this one. He's probably like a guitar from something that's gonna like a 1, 2, go. Keep going out of action. Yeah, and I went. Oh, that's wrong. Right. 1, 2, 1 left. And it's so bad. I think I have technical problems sometimes. This is incredible. So, I don't know what that name, but losing, you look at it. But you look at a lot of different things. Ooh, a Zony. So long. Oops. Not looking good. They will work out with the game. It's the point. And it's a pain to throw in there. Like, how's it get off? Yeah, that's what we get. What's he flag to show it on? Show it on this one. So we got a radio. Flag. We're not going to which is a flag. Shot across. Right. Click on. Okay. Okay. So we're going up to level 5 there. Okay, that was gas nuts. Go. Nice. And across. I do like these little moon challenges. They are nice. I really don't understand how to about that. But anyway, there's guns. Regular lines. 2, 3, 4. Still close to one thing up. Okay, we need to this. Go. I think I'm just about done with this moon. Oh. Yeah, sure you do. Oh, come on, last shot. Right, that's me, and I'm okay. I'm going to watch I put you into this. I just bring you. Alright, come on, yeah. No. Right. Let's go back to Aphelion. One more Zoni, and we are golden for that chip tether. Which I want to get. That's what I wanted. It was so with the weight. Let's go back to nice. This is how it's going to be mentioned inside this game. The other one being the intro cutscene with Clank and Quark. Right. Oh no. Oh no. Sorry, Ratchet. Got you killed. We're gonna end it off after probably this moon, because I'm gonna get Zoni. I want the next header. Go. So that's. Go this way. Keep going about it. If I need to go Zoni. Fine. I think you'll do it.
Folks! In my excitement over the Moonlight Lounge spot, I may have over-anticipated the level of support I could expect from you. My
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to look at this lovely nice limo here. Time to sabotage the jamming array. Off we go. It's a fast little vehicle. Why can't we fly on in that? That'd be so like got these flies in it. Well, whether that even means, I don't really know. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is take care of all these chicken bots as usual. Chickens in space! It's like a nightmare country.
Expose transmitters with the bolt crank.
And so you have to use the old bolt crank to reveal the transmitters and then destroy them, like so.
Hit the exposed rods to destroy the towers.
Now if you jump onto this bad boy. Allow me to get onto this. There we go. And then just jump. And we got to the platinum bolt. How lovely is that, eh? We're going to bounce over to here. And we make it. Probably not. Gonna try. Nowhere near. Going down. Damn. Okay, just smack the way up. I forgot to bomb to work its magic. Damn it. Where did that go? That's more like it. Everybody's a gravity bomb in their lives, so I really recommend it. Land in this thing. Be like, oh yeah. It's so fun. You have to put a space mask on because you can't breathe otherwise. So it's very important to breathe. Airlife is very good for you. I'm also saying guys, it's more there. That's what it is. Basically, let's do it. There. So one over here as well, actually. Oh, choices. Must jump. I love the jumping thing. It's just crazy. It's magic. It's lovely. It's magic in a box. Up here then. Like over here, so this is where to go, I think. Please be okay down here. Oh my goodness, that looks horrific. How do I get onto it? Oh my god. Oh, there you go. Platforms are there. That would be how. Now it all makes sense. Just got this heavy lancer. What the hell was that? That's scary for a bit. We say yes. Yes! I was one down here as well, that's what it was. That's a nice easy one. And that's weird. Just deal with it. Okay, oh good lord. Start as well. This is what cool actually you can do here. You can do and then we're like, where'd he go? Come up here guys. I love this so much. Boing. To the next one. I used to know. Oh my god, no! Jesus Christ, Benson! I don't know how I did that. I'm so sorry, guys. It's not my day, isn't it? Yeah, it's not my day. My name is Michael Caine. That's not my day. Dear, dear. My contact who I've got on the policy button for some reason. Rather than like in the last game, we had to perform it all live on the spot. Just sort of more like real life, I suppose. But you know, games aren't meant to be like real life. There we go. Spear disabled. Mission complete. On we go.
Good work, my boy. You are proving to be invaluable in this underwear.
use your refractor to aim the laser beam at the
Sync the fueling station's position to your radar. Here we go!
Onyx identified. Alert Dr. Nefarious.